Hello, everyone. This is Aditya Mehta, and you are listening to Personality Development Podcast. Have you often found yourself wondering, who am I really? It's a question we all ask at some point, yet the answer often seems elusive. We live in a world where we are constantly evolving, influenced by circumstances, expectations, and the noise around us. But what if the key to unlocking the life you truly want begins with understanding who you are at the core, right? I'm thrilled to be joined by Susanna Kenyon Moore, a holistic life and career coach who helps people break through the confusion and gain clarity on their true selves. In this first episode of our three-part series on what's holding you back, we are going to tackle the very first step of personal transformation, and that is clarification. Clarification on who you really are. Understanding who you are isn't just about figuring out your likes or dislikes, it's about aligning with your values, your purpose, and your inner strength. And when you can do that, you will discover the power to remove any obstacles standing in your way. But hey, before we are joined by our expert, you know the drill. Click on that subscribe button and the bell icon if you haven't done that already. Do that. I'm waiting over here. I hope you have done that. With that being said, let's begin today's episode by this intro music. Here we go. Hello everyone, welcome back to Personality Development Podcast, and joining me today is none other than Susanna Kenyon Moore. Hello Susanna, how are you doing today?
Hi, Aditya. This is such an honor to be here. Thank you for the introduction, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Yes, I am personally very much excited to talk about these things because no one has actually talked about it on a deeper level on this podcast as well, and I feel this is going to be a very interesting conversation because personally I feel there are lots and lots of questions which are still unanswered right now. And personally, I believe this podcast is also for my growth because maybe I'll get some clarification on who really I am today on this show, right? So I'm pretty excited about it. And really, thank you so much for taking out your valuable time and to be a part of this show. I really, really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Absolutely. And clarity is something that I'm so passionate about, and it's such a like an important and pivotal place to start in any area in your life, whether it's your career, your business, or your life. It's kind of like the saying, if you don't know where you're going, where are you really going? You don't get into a car and drive around aimlessly. I mean, maybe you might do on occasion, but most of the time you have an intention of where you're going. And it should the same philosophy applies to in your life. Knowing where you're going based on alignment of who you are can really set you on an intentional path of where you want to get to and what you want to create in your life, and creating from a place of freedom, abundance, whatever that is. So this is something that I'm so passionate about, and it's something that I work with a lot of clients on, but has also been my own personal journey. So yeah, happy to dive in.
Wonderful. But before we dive into the episode and towards the topic as well, first, what I gave was a very crisp and short introduction of yours. Uh, if you would like to go ahead and give your detailed introduction to our listeners.
Absolutely. So I'm a holistic life and career coach now. and I've been doing this full time for just over 2 years. But to give you a bit of background, so I started in corporate tech. Actually, do you know what? I'll start from the beginning. I'm English and German. People always try to figure out where is that accent from, and it's not really from anywhere. But I was born and raised in Singapore, and then I lived there for 20 years on and off, and then I moved to Australia. And that really started my path towards doing what I do today. And I worked in tech, for just under 20 years, working for small and large tech companies. Some of them you will have heard of, like Citrix, Salesforce, VMware. And I had a great career. I loved what I did. It afforded me, to travel around the world, work with amazing people, learn a lot of skills. But I remember in my mid 20s thinking, there has to be a bigger purpose to what I want to do. And I always wanted to set up my own business. And I remember actually, funnily enough, my parents used to live in Mumbai when I was 13. And I went to boarding school when I was 13. And they moved from Singapore to India, and I stayed in Singapore. And I remember thinking I wanted to be a businesswoman. I didn't know what that meant. But in my mid 20s, I started this thought process of what is my bigger purpose? That curiosity and sense of like where do I want to be has carried, and what my purpose is has carried throughout my life. And that's why I'm so passionate about clarity, because I've spent a lot of time over the last 15 or so years getting really clear on who I am. And that's been a process, right? Like with anyone, it's been peeling back of the layers of the onion. It's been shedding things. It's been, working through trauma. It's been um, really getting to the core of who I am. And I think this is a journey that it never stops. We are always learning new things about ourselves. And so yeah, I spent 17 years working in tech around the world, from Singapore, Australia, and the UK. And then 2 years ago, I started the journey probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I started coaching people when I was at Salesforce. I was doing various qualifications. And it was an amalgamation of things that when 2 to 3 years ago, I decided I wanted to run my own business and focus solely on coaching. And here I am now, and I help people to find their purpose and to create thriving lives and purposeful lives, and ones that are in full alignment with who they are. So that is my passion now.
That's a wonderful thing. And I'm like, thank you so much for sharing that entire story. I really, really loved it. And the fact that you have lived in Mumbai gives a whole lot of perspective to listeners that whatever you are going to speak will relate to them as well, those who are living in India. And it's not only going to relate to the people who live other than India. So I'm pretty sure this this will have lots and lots of perspective for them as well. And you had mentioned before as well that you have a lot of Indian clients as well. Uh, so
Mhm.
I'm sure today in this episode, a lot of people are going to get a lot of additional values for their life. I'm pretty sure about that. Now, coming straight to the topic, and the very first question that I'm going to ask you is, according to you, what is self clarification? How do you define it? And what can be the first step towards the clarification?
Yeah. So clarity to me is an inner journey. It is an inner journey of exploration of who you are and discovering all facets of you, the facets of you that are about what you love doing, what you don't love doing, what lights you up, what gives you energy, what sparks joy, and being really curious about the things that are important to you. And I say this might sound so simple, it might be like, oh, of course I know what I like doing. But what I experience and what I often see is that often our decisions can be clouded by external pressures from society, your parents. I know often in the Eastern world as well, there are pressures from parents to get a certain, be a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer, a banker. And and so, we can end up in positions where we're doing things in our life and in our career that are not congruent with who we are and what really we desire.
Hmm.
So to answer your question, self clarity, like to me, is an inner journey of like who you are, and also, what you love, but also what you are good at. And really, I think sometimes when we've been doing a career for so long, we forget what we're good at because we've become almost like experts or automatic in doing certain tasks. And so I help people to become really clear in the skills that they've acquired, and then being able to create jobs or lives that are congruent with that. So self clarity is, in a simple word, who am I? Who am I, and what is it that I want to create in this life that comes from a place of fulfillment and purpose?
That's very well said. You also mentioned about the external factors that
Mm-hmm.
influence our clarification part, I would say. And the biggest influence that is being played in everyone's life right now is social media. Okay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there are so many things on social media, and we sometimes feel that, this is something I should be doing. And turns out that it gives a lot of money, and even money making is one of the external factors as well. That we try doing certain things because of earning money rather than having that sort of fulfillment in our lives. What would you like to say about that? Like, do you really feel that the social media is uh, having an upper edge towards the clarity that we want to seek? And if that is, how can we actually make sure that we are in a position that we don't get influenced much by social media?
This is such a good question and topic, and something that's also very prevalent for me at the moment. So I'm going to break it down into the pros and cons. And, what I would say is, with everything in life, it's be intentional with the things that you do and what you consume. Social media, has its benefits in terms of it can be inspiring. We can draw motivation from other people and what they're doing, seeing what the art of the possible is. And so, sometimes I do with clients, if they are struggling, if they're struggling to figure out what their purpose is because they've been doing one thing for so long, it's very hard sometimes for them to switch their creative brains on and to see what is possible. And so I think social media can be great from that perspective because it can help to open up your creative brain and the art of the possible of what is available. One thing that I have seen, at least in the last 10 years, and I think with some of the younger kind of Gen Z generation, is this creative, there's so many creators out there now. There's so many people creating digital businesses and doing things that maybe, at least when I grew up, I'm not trying to sound like a dinosaur, but we kind of went down a path of go to university, get a corporate job, work your way up the corporate ladder, and that was the path. Whereas now there are infinite things that you can do, from working in social media to being a digital creator to being a nomad, traveling the world. I mean, there's just infinite possibilities. So I think social media does give you that visibility to help you to get clear on maybe like what are some avenues that you can go down. In terms of like some of the drawbacks, and this is something I'm very conscious of as well, is social media can, like, it can create a lot of noise,
Hmm.
and it can create a lot of noise in your mind about feeling peer pressured about what you should or shouldn't be doing, feeling fear of missing out, feeling like you should be doing all of the things, and that can put pressure on people. It can cause anxiety. And so I think it's really important to be mindful of what you consume and who you follow, and be intentional with that time. I mean, it's something that, I'm guilty of. Like, I consume social media sometimes way too much, and then I feel like, A, I've wasted time, and like, am I doing things that are congruent with me? And I just recently was at a business retreat where I had to really get back to the core. I went in with the intention of clarity of like, am I aligned and doing things in alignment with my business? And I had some, realizations through that. And so I would say with social media, just be conscious of what you're following and who you're following and what you're consuming. And do things like check in with yourself. Are you, making decisions based on what you think you should be doing because other people are doing it? Or is it really what sparks joy in your life and in you?
Hmm.
And I think that is really important to be mindful of. So yeah, so social media, it can be positive, but I think there's some drawbacks that one has to be aware of.
Right. That's very really really very well said, and it somehow takes me back uh, to the story that why I started podcasting. Okay, because initially that's because I saw this amazing series which was known as God Friended Me, and in that the lead character had a podcast, and I felt, you know what, I should give it a try. And when I gave it a try, it turned out that I genuinely love it because I get to interact with so many people who actually make sure that I am developing myself as well. And in the meantime, I'm creating a bridge between the experts and the learners. So, that's really, really well said. And I really appreciate that. However, the next question which I have is that's related to you having a lot of clients, I would say, a lot of people that you have coached, and I'm sure that you might have found this one problem that comes constantly in each and every client you had. So
Hmm.
I would like to ask is what's one of the biggest challenge that you have come up with, like when you have taken your clients and when you have gave them coaching, what's that one thing which has been constant in each and every client of yours that is the biggest obstacle for them to get the clarity on who they are?
I think for a lot of people, it's not knowing who they are and not knowing what steps to take to figure that out. And like I was saying before, because I mostly work with corporate professionals that are in the middle of their career. So they've had, 10, 15, 20 years already in a certain job or career. And they've been doing things for so long that the thought of doing something else is frightening, and they don't know where to start and what to do. And so when I work with people, I think there's a mixture of fear of the unknown, and there's a mixture of, where do I even start? I don't even. I mean, I remember one of my first clients said, "I have no hobbies. I don't know what I like to do. I don't even know where I would start." And this is a part of the unraveling, and it's a part of the journey of getting closer and clearer to who you are. So that is definitely a process. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So that is probably one of the key challenges, I would say.
Wonderful. Okay, and how do you help them out when they face this kind of challenge? Is there any method that you would like to specify over here?
Yeah, so I actually created a six-step, what I call the magnetic success method. And the first three steps are centered on clarity. The first step is reflection. And reflection, whilst it might sound really simple, is so important to reflect on a period in your life, whether it's the last 6 months, a year, and really reflect on what has and hasn't worked for you. What are you proud of? What are the challenges you face? What lessons have you learned? And what do you want to carry forward? And getting clear on what your priorities are. And I think, it's easy for, I work with a lot of high achievers, people that want to challenge themselves, they want to grow, they want to reach that next level, but they tend to also be stuck in patterns of feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, trying to do it all, and not being focused and clear in what is a priority, and focusing on that. So reflection is the first step, um, so that you don't make mistakes from the past, and so you're clear about what it is that you want. The second step is who you are, and sorry, the second step is your purpose and desires, and this is a bit more of a fun, it's just a fun process of really unraveling what lights you up and what your purpose is. And so I guide people through various different exercises, and some of this is intuitive, some of it is methodical, and then the final part is who am I. This refers more to like your values, your strengths, your role models, and things like that. So that's how I break it down.
That's wonderful. Audience, I would like to tell you one thing over here. I used to say it and now I'm saying it again, and that is make sure that you are listening to this podcast intentionally to learn and grow. And for that, I always tell you to make sure to keep a diary with you when you are listening to this podcast, because I really want you to note it down, because these are some amazing things. Or you can do, or what you can do is you can just listen to this episode on repeat, and that makes me really really happy, honestly. So make sure to do that, and do let me know if you are doing that in the comments. And now coming back to you, Susanna, uh, one thing which I really want to ask over here is, you mentioned about these three steps, which is related to clarity. And of course, we are going to talk about the next three steps in the next episode as well. One thing which I would really like to know is that, in your experience, okay, how does gaining clarity helps a person in different areas of life and not just in career? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because most of the people feel that I want to, be great at career, but that's not the only point where the life is becoming fulfilling, right? Because there are other parts of life as well. Like there is relationships, I would say. There is a hobby that you have, and there are many other factors in your life as well. So, how do you feel gaining clarity affects those areas of life as well?
Yeah, it's such an important point, and it's actually like the first thing I do with clients is to help them get clear on what other areas in your life are a priority. And like you said, there's relationships, there's career, financial, health, your home environment, like where you live. There's family and friends. There's fun and recreation. Like, do you want to create more like fun in your life? That was one of the things that one of my clients wanted to prioritize. So I typically try to focus on three things because I think it's easy enough, but it's enough to give you some motivation. So I think getting clear on what those three areas are is so important so that you are again doing things from a place of alignment. And I love that you brought this up because it's one thing having clarity in what you want in your career, but that has to align to other areas in your life. If your health is suffering, you've just been through loss, or you are feeling burnt out or overwhelmed, there's no point in trying to like hammer a job that's going to make you feel even more burnt out. It's important to look at things from a place of balance, and how can you create that balance and neutrality in your life. Or one of my clients it was important for him to focus on family life as well. So choosing a job that is going to give him that freedom, less travel, so he has time that he can spend with his family. So those things, yeah, absolutely, are so important.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for saying that out loud, because I believe it's really, really important that, people do notice the other areas of life as well, rather than just getting success in careers. Uh, so that's very well said. I have one last question, Susanna, before we wind up this episode, and that would be, uh, there are some people who are, I would not say some people, most of the people, uh, they get stuck with their labels. Okay. Like, for example, there are some people who would say that, what, I am the provider of the family. I have to really work hard, no matter, how I like things or doesn't like things, but I still have to provide to my family. So I am the provider. Okay. Someone would say that, what, I am the vice president of the company and I have to make sure that everything is in place. Okay. So there are people who get stuck with their labels and it's really difficult for them to see beyond that. Um,
Mm.
and I'm sure you might have, come across those clans as well. How do you make sure that, they try to see beyond that as well?
Yeah, so I think it's a mixture of things. Number one, the first thing that came to mind is, are you happy? You know, is being the VP, is being the provider, like, does it light you up? Now, I understand there's also a sense of like responsibility, and like that's why knowing your priorities is important, right? Like, if being the provider fulfills your cup in terms of family and it's a means to an end, I would check in with yourself. Like, you could use, a scale of 1 to 10, like how happy and fulfilled does being that provider or being the VP make you feel? If you're at a 1 and but it's a priority, then I would say, is it worth the sacrifice? Is there something else that you could do where you'd be happier and you can still be the provider? And this is where the clarity comes. It comes back to clarity of like, there are a plethora of things that people can do, infinite possibilities of things that you can do that are going to help you create financial, freedom or wealth, that are going to help you address your need to be a provider or to support your family. So I would check in with yourself. Are you happy? Does it light you up? Does it align to your priorities? And if you're not happy, what is there something else that you could do? So I think knowing your priority is step one, knowing what you love and what you're good at. And that comes down to the second part of my framework, which is about purpose and desires, right? You need to kind of know what you love and what you're good at and what you could get paid for, so that that's in alignment too.
Wonderful. But I mean, now I have one more question. I told you that that was the last question, but
Sure.
I have one more question now, and that is related to desire. Okay. Now, we, you know, most of the times, okay, we we kind of mix desire and the real want together. So sometimes it's just a short term desire that we are enjoying it, but later on it's not that fulfilling. Okay. For some period of time it feels really good to do that thing, but then it feels like, what, maybe I have chosen a wrong path. Okay. And so basically initially it was just a desire. It was not the real purpose, but sometimes it does get mixed up. What would you like to say about that?
Do you have like an example of what you're referring to in terms of a
Yeah, for
desire?
example, yes, for example, let's say this friend of mine, okay, who thought that, making Instagram reels is something which is really, really fun for her. And she started doing that. Later on, she literally, after, 2 or 3 weeks, okay, she told me that, what, I'm not really enjoying it. I was really excited in the beginning that I really want to do it. I want to do, make valuable content, but now it doesn't excite me much. So, initially she thought that this is the thing which is going to make her happy, but it didn't turn out that way. So what would you like to say about that?
Yeah. So a few things. One, it's a balancing act between like continually like getting clear on what does light you up, and sometimes you're gonna have to trial and test things. You're not gonna
Hmm.
know everything, right? You can't do all the inner work, journal, work with a coach without trying it in real life. But that is life, right? You get to experiment, you get to try things out. If it does, and then check in with yourself. Do I enjoy this? Am I good at it? Does it feel right? Is it in alignment? If it's not, then you get to pivot. Life is about experimenting, pivoting, changing direction. Your life purpose isn't a one time thing. Like what I do today lights me up, but I get to continually evolve and change that. And like I was saying to you at this business retreat 2 weeks ago, um, one of the things that I realized was connection and intimacy are important to me in my business and wanting to do more in person experiences. I only figured that out because the last 6 months I've been doing most of my work online. So you have to try things in life as well. There's actually a really great book called How to Designing Your Life by Bill Evans, and I forget the other author's name. And it guides you through, how to design your life, but also prototyping it, like trying it, testing it, before you maybe go full time into designing reels for the rest of your life or for a short term period. So I would say you got to try and test things and pivot from there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for answering that. And thanks to the community member Shraddha Thakkar who asked this question. And guys, let me tell you this, if you want to ask questions to the experts, do join the community. And for joining the community, you just have to mail me or DM me on Instagram. Both the information are available in the description. So make sure to do that. Coming back to you, Susanna. Firstly, thank you so much for answering that. And the other thing, this would be my last question for sure. And that is, if people really wants to get connected with you, how can they find you on internet?
So you can find me on Instagram. It's coaching by Susanna. Susanna is Susanna. You can find me on YouTube as well. It's also coaching by Susanna. The same on my email address, hello at coaching by Susanna. And, yeah, on LinkedIn as well. So those are my main channels. Instagram is probably the one I'm most active on.
That's wonderful. And also, Susanna, last time we did had a pre-recording session, and you said that there is a gift for the listeners who are listening to this episode right now. Would you like to reveal that gift?
Absolutely. So I have an ebook, and I actually have two things. So I have an ebook that guides you through my 6 step framework. It's comprehensive, easy to read, gives some great examples. So if you would like that ebook, just drop me either an email or reach me on Instagram and just DM me and just say ebook. And then I also have a mini training session, which is 20 minutes, and it guides you through the 6 steps as well, and how you can break free from negative patterns and beliefs in your life so that you can create a life that you love and dream of. So we could give those both to you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Susanna, for doing that. Audience, what you have to do is do DM her and do mention that you have listened to her on Personality Development Podcast. Only then she is going to reply to you. Make sure to do that. Sorry, Susan, I have said that on your behalf, but that's how things work.
I appreciate it. I
Uh,
appreciate it. So thank you.
uh, Wonderful. Thank you so much, people, to listening to this episode. I really hope that you have got some amazing values from this episode. Thank you so much, Susanna, for being a part of the show. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure you have added some immense values in my life, and I'm sure in the life of the people who are listening to this episode. So thank you so much for that. And with that being said, audience, we are signing off from today's episode. This is Aditya Mehta along with Susanna signing off from this episode. See you in the next one. Till then, peace out.